Pressure builds to keep the child abuse inquiry alive after the third independent chair resigns. There are calls for a prompt appointment to replace Dame Lowell Goddard. Others say the job's simply too big. Her surprise resignation shocked and saddened campaigners.
Bewildered and even betrayed, because it has been so hard to find somebody who is acceptable to the victims and survivors in this inquiry.
Also this lunchtime, an echo of the American Black Lives Matter movement disrupts traffic to claim black people here face the same threats. Big losses at RBS prompt a branch sell-off and a slide in shares, and that's bad news for the taxpayer. And on your marks, get set, Rio counts down to the opening of the Olympic Games.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Alistair Stewart.
Good afternoon. Amid charges of an establishment cover-up of high-profile suspects, chairing the independent inquiry into decades of alleged child abuse proved too tall an order for Dame Lowell Goddard. The magnitude of the job, she said, was simply too much of a struggle. In 2 years, this inquiry has already seen 2 other chairs resign. Labour have insisted a new chair is found urgently, and the victims insist their cause is not conveniently forgotten. But others say it may now prove impossible to find someone who can unravel this mess. Our political correspondent, Libby Vina, reports.
A swift replacement is promised, but the departure of the New Zealander, Dame Lowell Goddard, is a huge blow to the child abuse inquiry, the third chair to quit after being appointed only last year.
I can tell the House that I plan to appoint Justice Lowell Goddard as the new chairman of the independent panel inquiry into child sexual abuse.
As her successor at the Home Office scrambles to get the inquiry back on track, one survivor spoke for many.
I felt bewildered and even betrayed, because it has been so hard to find somebody who is acceptable to the victims and survivors in this inquiry. We've already had 2 resignations prior to this, and a huge amount of public money has been spent on it so far without yet hearing any evidence. And I think the public at large will, just see this as a complete farce now.
The inquiry's remit is very wide, to consider child sexual abuse within public bodies and non-state institutions, specifically whether they've taken seriously their duty of care to protect children. The institutions include Parliament, the Anglican and Roman Catholic churches, and various children's homes and local authorities.
I think it would be very difficult to take over, there having been 3 previous candidates, all of whom have resigned. It will take a very special and determined person to see it through to the end.
But survivors groups who met the Home Secretary Amber Rudd this morning say they're confident she will find someone to take on the job and see it through.
And Libby, as you can see, joins me live now. You spoke to those survivors after they'd met with Amber Rudd. What else did she have to say to them?
Well, they were surprisingly positive about their meeting this morning. Amber Rudd told them that with Theresa May now Prime Minister, that she, as Home Secretary, had support from the very top to ensure that this inquiry is a success. That said, it is extremely embarrassing that the third chair in 2 years has resigned from this inquiry, and her predecessors both resigned amid accusations that they were members of the British establishment. One of the reasons that Theresa May went so far afield as to New Zealand to get a new chair was that she hoped that she would prove independent and would be above suspicion. In that sense, I think that Amber Rudd now finds herself back at square one.
Libby, thank you. Well, joining me live now is Karma Melli QC, a leading criminal barrister who specialises in child sex crime. Good of you to join us, Karma. I know you've been in court this morning. Is this about not being able to find the right person, or was it simply always an inquiry too far?
Well, this inquiry has had a number of difficulties, of course, in its history. Part of it is, of course, that the inquiry is so all-encompassing that the previous Home Secretary has had real difficulty in identifying somebody who can chair this inquiry, who has had no previous connections with any of the other institutions or individuals involved in it. So it is difficult for the Home Secretary now to find somebody who can deal with this very wide-ranging inquiry.
Should it start from scratch then? I mean, I was going to ask you about the job description, as it were, and it is complex. It's a woman, it's an independent, it's someone who's not associated with the establishment. I mean, if that is impossible, have you just got to start the whole process from scratch?
Well, I think that news would just come as a bitter disappointment even further to the survivors of sexual abuse who have been calling for this inquiry now for many years. Clearly, the parameters have now been set. Council are in place. The organisation and the framework is there behind the inquiry. And what we need to do now is find someone, which I'm confident is possible, who doesn't have the links to these inquiries, but is perhaps better grounded in our system of justice here, who can move forward with this inquiry as quickly as possible.
Finally, and it's a personal question, if I may, I mean, it's your daily bread dealing with current examples of this. What must it be like for those people Libby was talking to who allegedly endured this all those years ago and now see it again skidding through the long grass?
Well, that's right. These individuals have waited years, if not decades, for somebody to look into how they were failed by the institution that they were involved in now. It looked as though with the appointment that we did have, that we finally had somebody who had no such links, who wouldn't be set by difficulties as the inquiry moved forward. And for this announcement to come with so little explanation, it has to be said, as to why the resignation has come at this point, and these matters were not considered before the inquiry was allowed to move on, will, just as I've said, be a bitter disappointment.
Karma Melli, thank you for your expertise and for your time. Now, protesters from the Black Lives Matter campaign have caused disruption on some of the UK's major transport routes today. Demonstrators blocked entrances to Heathrow and Birmingham airports, as well as the tram system in Nottingham. The group was calling for a nationwide shutdown. The movement spread to the United Kingdom from the US, following the killing of a number of black Americans by US police officers. Juliette Bremner reports.
Black Lives Matter!
On a key approach road to Heathrow, protesters blocked the carriageway. Part of coordinated action intended to highlight what organisers claim is police violence towards black people. Several protesters chained themselves together before filling pipes with cement. It was painstaking work to remove them, but activists refused to apologise for any disruption.
Why are you protesting about black lives in the UK? Isn't that an American issue? Well, actually, in the US, they've seen police officers convicted for what they've done to people. Since 1990, at least, we've seen 0 convictions for over 1,563 deaths in police custody.
The line was broken near Birmingham Airport to allow an ambulance to pass. But protesters here also had to be removed by the police. In Nottingham, the trams were brought to a standstill when sympathisers lay down on the tracks, once again chained and cemented together after a call on social media for a nationwide shutdown.
1,562 deaths in police custody in my lifetime, 0 convictions.
As well as deaths in police custody, the UK campaign is focusing on deaths during deportation and what they call everyday racism. Yesterday marked the 5th anniversary of the death of Mark Duggan, who died during a police operation in North London. His death was widely seen as a contributing cause of riots that erupted in the capital during the summer of 2011. Today's action will be followed by meetings and marches in different parts of the country as they try to match the publicity the same movement has attracted in the United States. Juliette Bremner, ITV News.
Well, Juliette mentioned Heathrow Airport in her report, and Nick Wallace joins us live from there now this lunchtime. What was the level of disruption there, Nick?
Well, the last protester was arrested around 90 minutes ago, but at 8 o'clock this morning, 6 protesters, as you saw in Juliet's report, changed themselves together and lay down across the road just at the end of the M4 spur there. They unfurled a banner which said Black Lives Matter and this is a crisis. As you can imagine, the traffic backed up all the way along the M4 spur, causing some consternation for people who were rushing to get their flights. When I asked one of the organisers if it was legitimate to do this, he said it is legitimate because of the disruption caused to black people every day by racism and grief. Now, the police quickly moved the protesters to the side of the road and traffic started flowing fairly quickly after around 9 o'clock. But how much sympathy Black Lives Matter UK will get for a stunt like this across the country, and particularly from people who may have been delayed catching their flight this morning, remains to be seen.
Nick, thank you. The Chief Executive of the Royal Bank of Scotland has told ITV News his bank will review whether it lowers its interest rates for some mortgage customers. Ross McEwan hasn't followed other banks yet, despite a call from the Bank of England yesterday to help customers immediately. Bigger than expected losses in the first half of this year saw the shares slide, which is bad news for taxpayers who own 73% of the bank. Joanna Partridge has more.
It's the part taxpayer-owned bank which keeps on making a loss. Royal Bank of Scotland is still paying the price for wrongdoing during the financial crisis. RBS's boss, Ross McEwan, says the bank is making progress.
Our customer service levels are really good. The lending into the economy is good. Our mortgage lending is well up. So we are providing real services to this UK economy. That's why we were saved as a bank.
RBS lost £2 billion in the first half of this year. Over half of that, £1.3 billion, is to settle PPI mis-selling claims and other legal costs. The bank has lost over £50 billion since the 2008 financial crisis. After the Bank of England cut interest rates yesterday to an historic low of 0.25%, RBS says the economic outlook is challenging and it'll be harder to make a profit in the coming months. That's even though, like other banks, it's already closing some of its RBS and NatWest branches to lower costs. The rate cut also means worse returns for savers. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney has called on banks to pass the lower rate on to their customers with standard variable rate mortgages. Barclays and Santander have already done so, but RBS hasn't yet followed suit.
We're in review. We haven't said we're not. What we're doing is reviewing both sides of, because you've got customers who have given us money in deposits and you've got customers who are borrowing money. We're reviewing both sides of those at the moment. And you have to do them in conjunction with each other.
RBS's shares are falling again this lunchtime, continuing their slide over the last year. The Brexit vote has brought economic uncertainty. The taxpayers likely to be waiting some time to get their money back for their remaining 73% stake in RBS. Joanna Partridge, ITV News.
Still to come. Walking for the first time. Hope for a toddler named Hope. But first, the Olympic Games will be officially opened in Rio later. It is the first time the competition's been hosted by a South American country. Despite protests on the streets and concerns over the Zika outbreak, the nation is preparing to celebrate the start of the Games with a carnival-style opening ceremony, as our sports correspondent Ian Payne reports.
And so, after a long and controversial build-up, the day has dawned. The day of the opening ceremony of the 31st Olympiad is upon us, with the Olympic torch arriving at the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio just a couple of hours ago. And last night, everywhere, Latin monuments were lit up to herald the Games. World leaders like French President François Hollande have joined Olympic chiefs who, after Zika, Russia, pollution and protests, are probably delighted the sport can take centre stage. And there's optimism amongst the competitors, despite the absence of Russian track and field athletes.
Here is where everybody want to be, It has been a long preparation for Rio. Everybody want to be here, but some people are not here, but we are here.
And at the Olympic Village, they've been given entertainment to take their minds off training. After arriving at Team GB's headquarters, athletes like sprinter Adam Jamili and heptathlete Katarina Johnson-Thompson can't wait to get started.
be so nice to go out there and perform well when it matters, running my fastest times and hopefully making everyone proud. It would be nice, personally, to go back and have a medal as a sort of reward for all the hard work we have put in.
It's just any athlete's dream. It's Olympic champs, you know, it's the pinnacle of all track and field athletes' careers, so it's just, it will mean, you know, everyone's dreams will come true if they do well.
The athletics don't start until next Friday. Events in the pool and elsewhere dominate the first week, but there are bound to be fingers crossed when the torch makes the journey to the stadium tonight that all goes well. Ian Payne, ITV News.
And our sports reporter, Amy Lewis, there she is, live at the stadium, where the opening ceremony will begin a little later. Sneak preview, Amy, what have you heard on the buzz?
Well, Alistair, in this carnival country, you can expect plenty of fireworks, plenty of colour and a pretty big party. Around about 11,000 athletes are going to be here this evening, including around about a tenth of Team GB's 366 athletes. Leading them out, of course, will be Andy Murray, the flag bearer for Team GB. A couple of days ago, we saw him holding the flag. Didn't go too well. I asked him about that yesterday, and he said that he is going to be getting in plenty of practice today to make sure that he does the job properly. But he did say that it will be the proudest moment of his career so far. In terms of how it's going to compare to London, we're told it won't be as grand. It's going to cost around about a tenth of the cost of London's, which is £27 million. The reason for that is that the country is in its worst recession since the 1930s. At the moment, we're expecting the Olympic torch here a little later, as here in Rio, they kick off the first ever Olympic Games in South America.
Amy, thank you very much. Now, every Olympics yields their own forgettable moments, and it's not always somebody simply winning a medal. 24 years ago, Derek Redmond was in Barcelona representing Great Britain in the 1992 Games. He was competing in the 400 metres semi-final when he tore his hamstring. Clearly devastated but determined to go on, he did. Derek limped painfully to the end. What was perhaps even more touching, however, was the helping hand he had from his father, who made his way onto the track to walk with his son to the finishing line. And I'm delighted to say Derek is here and had to endure reliving all of those moments once again. And Ian Payne is also here as well. Let me start, first of all, with you, Derek. Amy was setting it up nicely. It's going to be a heck of a carnival party.
Yeah.
But if you're an athlete sitting there in Rio right now, hours away, days away, what's going through your mind?
All the hard work's been done. The training's been done. There's no more hard training to do. It's just maintaining and fine-tuning. And the biggest thing that'd be going through their minds is, I want to get going. I mean, you heard on your report there, Adam Jamili just saying, I just want to start competing. Everything's been done, and it's now just a waiting game until the gun goes or the whistle goes before you actually start your event.
And almost psychological blinkers. That's the focus, only that.
It is. You're there for one reason, and it's to perform at your best now, you know, and hopefully to come home with a medal. Now, for some people, winning the gold medal is making the Olympic team. For some people, it could be winning or making the final. For some, it's winning a bronze, a silver or a gold. Every athlete will have a target.
Yeah.
They will know what they want to do. They'll have a time, a distance, a height, whatever it is that they want to achieve, and nothing's going to stop them from trying to achieve that.
So it's that one moment. I am now going to take you back to 92. What goes through your mind when you look at these pictures of that moment? It was your moment. It was a semi-final.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd won the first 2 rounds. I was on the hunt for a medal. And when the hamstring went, I won't repeat what was actually going through my mind live on TV, but it's frustration when I look at it now. You know, more than anything else, frustration, because I lost 2 things in that race. One, I obviously didn't make the final, but had I finished that race, I would have come away with at least a personal best, and I didn't even come away with that. So 24 years later, I would say frustration is the thing that goes through my mind.
Extraordinary. Who are we looking for this time?
Right, well, we used to say that Team GB was all about the sitting-down sports. That's what they used to call them anyway, sailing, rowing, cycling, but the Brits are a bit better at some others as well. Let's take it chronologically. Let's start with cycling. Chris Froome is in action tomorrow. He's taking part in the road race, and we hear that the course is quite hilly and mountainous, so that might suit him. Then on Sunday, it's the women's road race, and that features the world champion Lizzie Armistead, who, of course, has been involved in a bit of controversy with all that going on, with missing 3 drugs tests. And then next Friday, the athletics begin. Of course, Derek, very interested in that. And that includes Mo Farah. Can he do it again? When, of course, it was that amazing Super Saturday when he, Jess Ennis-Hill and Greg Rutherford all won gold medals. It's lip smacking. I can't wait.
In a word, is he going to do it? Mo?
Yes.
Yep, that'll do nicely. Derek, thank you very much indeed. Penny, thank you very much indeed. Lots more memorable moments in the Olympics, and we've got a top 10 on our website, itv.com/news, also online. Ian's list of the ones to watch. And finally, a 3-year-old girl has felt the sensation of walking for the very first time, thanks to a new device which allows her to be strapped to her mother. Hope Stoker suffers from a rare condition which has given her joint problems, severely affecting her physical and her mental development. Suzanne Verdi has Hope's story.
Wow!
Every child's first steps are precious, but for Hope Stoker, they're nothing short of a miracle. Carefully strapped to her mum Michelle, she can finally feel what it's like to walk. It's a milestone her parents were told they'd never see her achieve.
Oh, I'm delighted. It gives Hope a chance to experience what her peers are doing. Just being upright, being able to go out walking, she'll be able to kick a ball with us. And she loves being upright anyway and being out. She's so sociable, so it'll just give her that experience as well.
Hope was born with Odo syndrome, which affects her physical and mental development. Weak muscles mean she can barely hold her head up, and at 3, she's only just learned to stand.
She never reached her milestones, so it just, sleeping's bad, but communication's not there, so it just explains everything.
The simple gadget called an Upsy has been paid for by the charity Smile for Life and will help Hope build much needed muscle strength.
Michelle approached us and said, was there any way we would be able to help and provide this harness to enable Hope to walk for the first time. So we were over the moon, and all our trustees unanimously agreed we'd love to help.
Hiya, Hope.
Each step she takes with her mum will make her legs stronger, and now there's hope that Hope will one day be able to walk on her own. Suzanne Verdi, ITV News.
Brilliant.
Well, we certainly hope so too. That is it this lunchtime. I hope that you can join me and Ranveer Singh for the ITV News at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from all of us here, bye-bye and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.